Okay, here we go. We have Madyson Rigg on the podcast. Yay, I'm so excited. She was actually part of the Pass the Mic segment for Ashley Wise's episode, which we're so excited to launch.
Yes.
Can't wait. Yes, and we get to know who Maddie is. Ashley brought such a beautiful tribute to who she is and why we should interview her. And let me just say, talking with her before the interview, she is a delight.
She is former Miss Montana.
She's currently Miss Montana.
Oh, that's right. She
Miss Montana USA. Over. Yeah, she's got to hand her tiara
the
over.
reigning, and I guess I should know this because she was wearing her sash when we interviewed her. That wasn't clue enough for my brain.
Yes,
but
yeah, she is
very down to earth, very wonderful woman.
Yeah,
very wonderful woman.
Wonderful, intelligent.
Gave me a new insight into pageants and
just the things that they have to deal with.
Oh yeah.
All the ideas of what beauty standards are, but then the conflicting piece of being a representation for women and being strong, mentally strong, physically strong, presenting herself as, hey, I'm a healthy specimen mentally and physically, and what that entails is so much freaking pressure because you are going into a beauty pageant to be judged on your physical appearance.
Beauty, yeah. Like you can't get around that one.
And then so many women struggle with what the idea of beauty is. Let me hear your thoughts on what's the idea of beauty.
I think beauty comes from the inside. I use the word beautiful to describe how I see somebody's soul more than I describe it to see what they look like.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you can meet a fantastically gorgeous human being, human specimen, whatever that beauty is in regards to your criteria of beauty, right? But then you have conversations with them and they're dead. They're dead on the inside.
Or they're mean. I mean, there can be a lot of good things that to me don't encapsulate what the word beautiful means. Because I use beautiful as the sunset, things that just lift my soul and make me feel good.
And my idea of people that are mean or nasty in their projection has changed. I used to be like, gosh, she's such a, or he's such a, but now I just feel more of, wow, what wounds are they carrying?
Oh, for sure.
Right. Yeah. What's going on up in their head. But, the idea of beauty and but physically, like I look at the physical idea of what beauty is, it's different for each person.
What people see, yes.
What they see,
what they see, and versus the standard is like.
But what the hell is the standard?
If that was the same question or not.
I'm thinking to myself, if there's a list of 20 check boxes to check as far as beauty standards go. How many of the boxes would I meet?
Oh, I don't even let my brain go there.
I'm thinking to myself, gosh, what pressure! Like to think that this is a standard sheet of what beauty is, and then these women like Maddie are up against that. Like they have to go up, and the other cool thing that I think is really interesting to learn is that mind-body connection that she'll be talking about, and what it takes to be under pressure, but exude confidence and that level of calm, but connecting. They're trained to connect with their breath work. They're trained to connect with how they're poised. And that all has to do with you slump your body when you're under pressure or you're scared or you're anxious. They're trained to the absolute opposite. And I think that's really interesting that they also have to think about that while they're on stage in front of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
And I love the fact that she likes public speaking. That was fascinating.
Yeah. I'm like, oh God, please don't put me in front of people to talk.
Because that is a different confidence with how you're speaking, without stuttering, without common and amen and that kind of thing. Just as, oh, wow, I really haven't met a lot of people that actually say they like it.
That they love it. I'm like, you love public speaking? I mean, there is an art to it. And she definitely has mastered it. Yeah. just not only beautiful on the outside, easy to look at.
Yes.
Like she's but her presence, she's warm, she's inviting, she's knowledgeable, she's learned a lot through life experience, but also taken the time to learn about interesting subjects and environmental matters. And I'm just really honored that she was willing to come to our studio and chat with us.
Me too. And she's such a delight. And I know you guys are going to enjoy her too.
Yep. Coming up, Madyson Rigg.
You're listening to the IWD406 Podcast with your hosts, Julie Walls and Kate McLaughlin.
This podcast episode features Madyson Rigg, Miss Montana USA, discussing her journey, pageant evolution, and recent Miss USA participation. She reflects on pageants, camaraderie among contestants, and pressures faced. Rigg also talks about her involvement with Glacier Institute, Kalispell community, and the process of competing for her third major pageant title.
Awesome. Yay. And without further ado,
Madyson.
Hello.
Hi,
So excited to be with you too.
I am too. Like I was really honored that you were like willing to even take a podcast pre-chat with us.
Oh my gosh.
Like I was like, oh my gosh, Miss Montana.
You're kidding?
Agreed to talk with us.
A thing about women in Montana, I'm first in line. I would have been knocking down the doors if you all had a public launch already. I would have been like, I'm calling those girls up. I'm getting on that podcast. So I'm honored
nice.
to be considered. And I'm just glad
Thank
it worked
you.
out.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And we're excited to get to know you better.
So we're going to start off with the question that we ask every woman on the podcast. Were you born in Montana?
I was born in Montana.
Okay.
I was born
Jealous.
just down the road in Kalispell at the Kalispell Regional Medical Center at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Now Logan.
Now Logan Health.
Right, okay.
I actually, and my life is full of these lovely little full circle moments, but I ended up working at Logan Health for a while in the marketing department. So I just get these like sweet little touch points of born there, worked there, getting to give back to it is really cool.
So did some of the nurses come up to you and be like, I delivered you?
No, I haven't. I didn't
Just
have
kidding.
any labor and delivery moments, but
Okay.
my mom's a nurse at the hospital and she has been for 30 years. So I get a lot of, oh, your aunt's daughter, which is sweet. So yeah.
Wonderful. I
Yes.
love that.
Has your family been in Montana long?
Yes, I am a fourth generation Montanan on my dad's side of the family. And my dad grew up in Great Falls, but his dad and his mom both grew up a little bit outside of Great Falls in smaller communities, Stanford, Montana, and a couple other little places.
So your dad's side homesteaded here.
Yeah,
Do
I
you know
actually
their,
really
like-
don't know like a ton of the
Okay,
history.
yeah.
Unfortunately, my family hasn't been fantastic record keepers of our genealogy. But yeah, we know for sure that we had 4 generations, but I don't know too much of the early stories.
Amazing. That's really, it blows me away each and every time we meet people that are generational Montanans. Because if I think about how I can barely handle the winters here, I think to myself, I'm a wuss because somebody that didn't have like electricity and had to go get logs outside and actually go cut firewood and do all the things 4 generations ago.
Yeah.
I have nothing really to complain about.
No, yeah, I know. I feel the same way.
no.
I'm like, my ancestors are laughing at me every time I get stuck in a snowbank.
I know.
Yeah, you got a car though.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's so interesting. Anyway, okay. So talk to us a little bit about your upbringing. So you grew up in Kalispell. What was that like?
Yeah.
And you went to Glacier. Did you go to Glacier High
I
School?
went to Glacier High School.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a really great childhood in Kalispell. I was fortunate enough, I think anyone who grew up here can say that they're fortunate enough to have grown up here, but I grew up going to St. Matt's, which is just a really beautiful community of people. And I'm not Catholic, but I always felt so welcome there. And I think it was great to be in a small school environment and to have that kind of community buy-in. And it's been really lovely this year to get to go back to my school and get to reconnect with my teachers. And again, one of those like beautiful little full circle moments. But a lot of my childhood really centers around the bodies of water around here. I grew up pretty much every day of the summer. When I was 2 days old, my parents had me out on their boat for the first time. So I have a July birthday. I think that my birthday, I say this to everyone, but I think that my birthday is the best day of summer in Montana.
Yes.
It's July 17th, which is, I think,
It's warmed up a little bit.
warmed up a little bit. You're past 4th of July, but we haven't quite hit fire season usually. So it's just usually perfect.
My daughter is going to be, so I told her I was interviewing Miss Montana today, and she's like, "Are you seriously? I'm going to miss this?" And I'm like, "I'm going to be at school." She's also going to be so excited. Well, she'll tell everybody that Miss Montana was in our house. And secondly, that your birthday is only 2 days away from her birthday. And she feels the exact same way that you feel. You get away from you feel like the 4th of July, the fireworks are about you basically. And it is the perfect time here to have a birthday. I love that.
Yeah, it is.
So you grew up on Flathead Lake, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. My parents had a house in South Kalispell on Lower Valley, and we were really close to the Flathead River. So most nights my parents would get done with work and we'd pick up grocery store fried chicken or pizza or whatever, and we'd pile into the boat and launch and head off either all the way down and get into the lake or find one of the sloughs. We were big church slough people.
Oh, church slough's cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. And
Church slough?
It's
church
a
slough.
slough is like a big
Yeah.
curvature that goes off of the river and then comes back to it.
But why is it called church slough?
I think there
don't
used to
know.
be a
That
church out
probably
there.
would make sense.
Yeah, or maybe there was a church family, or I don't really know.
We
the naming
used to
origin.
call them party sloughs. So I was
Yes,
thinking maybe there's some relevance to that. I
And
don't
I
know.
think that church is a big party slough. I remember seeing lots
Got it.
of like what seemed to be probably college kids.
Oh, yeah,
having a
partying.
very good time out there when we were
Yes.
younger. But yeah,
So you're a water baby.
I'm a water baby.
I hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
yeah.
Are you a water baby?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love swimming. My mom used to have to make me come out of the water.
Yeah.
Your lips are blue.
Yes.
Get out of the water.
And it's
Yes.
cold. It's
It
freaking
is
cold.
It's cold.
Yeah, but they've got really good fishing up that way. Did you fish?
Yeah, a little bit of fishing.
Yeah.
I think my family's not necessarily like that type of Montanans. We weren't big hunters or fishers.
Right.
But I know, like in 5th grade, we get to do the Hooked on Fishing program.
Oh, yeah.
And
that here? I
we
didn't know
do.
that.
Yeah,
Okay, got
yeah. And I'm sure that there's different age groups for different schools, but
Okay.
if I'm remembering correctly, it was in 5th grade. And we
went ice fishing,
we got
right,
to go
with that?
ice fishing. We went down to 9 Pipes on the Salish Kootenai Reservation, and we got to go fishing all the time. So I got a little bit more into it after that year, which is of course the intent of the program. So we would. I don't know how happy my dad was about us bringing fishing equipment onto his boat that he maintained with obscene care. But we
Do
did it every
not
once
tear
in a
the
while.
upholstery with that fishing hook.
Exactly.
Okay, hold on. Was your family where you can't bring Cheetos in the boat because
Absolutely.
it would stain the cushions?
Absolutely. No Cheetos and
the boat.
also no spray sunscreen.
That was us.
Yeah.
Yes, growing up. I know that. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, I can
Yeah.
totally relate.
Absolutely.
No,
Very
my
careful.
dad's boat was totally a fishing boat.
Oh,
It was-
got
yeah.
you. Okay, yeah.
Blood and guts on the ground after you smack one on the head,
I
a
like
pike
that.
or something.
Yeah.
Way better. Way
Yeah,
better.
That sounds very fun.
That's amazing. Okay, so now you are one of how many brothers and sisters?
I have one younger sister. She's 2 years younger than me.
Okay. Okay. So growing up, did you do any sort of sports? Were you
Yeah.
a theater kid or
Yeah.
all of the above?
Yeah, really all of the above. I
Okay.
think one of the really cool parts of especially growing up in the Flathead Valley, but I think in Montana in general, we have lots of opportunities to get involved in as many things as you want to. As a young kid, it was definitely a lot of sports. Started in t-ball and rotary basketball and started playing volleyball at a young age. And most of that took me through middle school and then a couple years of high school volleyball. And then in high school, I got more involved in theater and speech and debate. And
Speech and debate.
yeah.
Those
And you
kids.
liked doing it because that is most people's fears. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that.
It turns out, and maybe I knew a little bit because of St. Matt's. At St. Matt's, you say Mass as part of your kind of like curriculum in the religious education, but also it's a great opportunity to get used to public speaking. So we started saying Mass in kindergarten, small pieces. We got to do it.
Yeah.
And so I already had a good idea that I liked public speaking. And then before I joined Speech and Debate, I was in DECA and BPA, two business-focused organizations in high school where you get to, most of the time it's a role play situation. You'll read a prompt about a business scenario and you and a partner will come up with a plan for how you would solve that and you present it to a judge.
Oh, interesting.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it.
Where in the hell
I like
was
that
this?
idea because you're actually brainstorming and not like,
Yeah.
oh, my point's better than your point
Yeah.
or something.
And I loved my DECA partner was Devin Zander, and her and I were a great team. We both ended up as state officers for DECA, so we were very involved in the program, but it was so fun to get to come up with a solution. I remember one of our topics was this community had put in like a skate park or had a industrial area or something with a lot of concrete was the point. And they were experiencing a ton of graffiti. And so they were trying to figure out like, what should we do about this? And that was our job to figure out. And we decided to pitch the idea of them opening the space to local artists and inviting graffiti into the area in a more controlled sort of way so that people can have a space to express themselves without
just tagging and having names.
Which I mean, realistically now as an adult and seeing some of the spaces that have been created in that sort of similar zone, I know that's not necessarily a great solution to graffiti. Things may still happen, but it was fun.
But it gives an artist a chance to shine though too, and to say, hey, welcome into the community. We like what you do. We'd love you to present it in this sort of way.
And it's fun to think about high school kids getting the opportunity to think about those issues in their community and how, it's a silly competition thing that happened 14 years ago at this point, and I'm still thinking about it and the impact that it had on me.
And the impact. But I also think too, just the fact that you're giving kids the opportunity to think in a very abstract way. The opportunities that have been presented to you to be able to get out there and speak authentically, but also having the ability to use your brain and think in an abstract way really is light years ahead of what I was given for education growing up. I
found that with English and,
you did?
and writing.
Okay.
I could go abstract and I could go to different places.
Well, I was never given the platform to do like a public speaking type like to get up there and feel confident.
That would definitely have helped me.
It would have definitely helped. Yes.
To do that. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Because I know I freeze. I can be on air talking to thousands of people, but if you put me on a stage
where you can see them,
where I can see them and they're all judging me, watching me.
Yeah.
Well, I did acting, but acting is easier because like I'm pretending to be somebody else. It's not
character.
Me.
Oh, that's true.
But when you're up there and you're like, oh, it's me.
Yeah.
What a great experience. Seriously, what a great experience. Yeah. So then let's talk about how you decided to become or to go through the competition process of Miss Teen Montana.
Yeah, Miss Montana Teen USA.
Today's episode of the IWD406 Podcast is sponsored by Electric. Hey, this is Kate. Electric is my stage name when I'm a singer-songwriter. Okay, now that we've established this, we can move on. I've created a songwriting challenge for you to write your first song or your next one. To find out more about the Songs Inside You challenge, visit songsinsideyou.com today. We need lots of music in the world. Please write more songs.
Okay,
officially.
Miss Montana Teen USA. Okay,
Yes.
So you're in high school, and then was it presented to you?
Yeah. So it's a fun story. Like I said, I grew up playing volleyball. I was really invested in that sport and had been playing for 5-6 years at this time through school and also in club sports and all that good stuff. Like most people who play any type of sport. And once you get into high school, you're looped into doing it for many months. But we got to summer tryouts. It's the end of the summer and it's my junior year. And I'm trying out for the JV team, presumably, because once you're at that point, you're just ticking along if you didn't get moved up already. But I was excited to go through the process with my friends again and be back on the team. And unfortunately, I ended up getting cut through the tryout process. Yes, it was one of the hardest days that I can remember. I remember just being really devastated and feeling like I had lost a part of my identity and had lost this transitioning from St. Matt's into the big high school at Glacier. Being part of the volleyball team was a huge help to feeling like I had a community there, that I knew people and that I was part of something. Exactly. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? How do I go on? Yeah, it just really shook me. And I remember going home and my parents were trying to comfort me and being supportive through that. And then a day or two later, I got a letter in the mail. And as a high schooler, getting a letter in the mail is very exciting. So I remember opening it and reading, and it said they were looking for people to sign up for the Miss Montana Teen USA competition. And I've never done something like that before. I maybe had an interest in thinking that modeling was cool. This was in the height of America's Top Model and all that good stuff. And so I was like, I don't know why that sounds fun. I don't know why that seems like it would be a good idea. I didn't know how to curl my hair. I barely wore any makeup. I definitely didn't know how to walk in heels. But for some reason, I was like, I think I'm going to try this.
Let's do this.
I had, I think, like less than a month to get ready for the competition. It was in October. And we drove to Spokane and got a dress at one of the dress stores and found a swimsuit. And I found there was an element in the rule book that said you had to wear at least a 1-inch heel. And so I remember going to Famous Footwear with a ruler and finding like exactly a 1-inch.
Yeah, a 1-incher.
Yeah, so as low as I could go without breaking the rules, which is so funny now to think about. And I went to competition. It was in Missoula, and I had the best time. I totally fell in love. I was in the top 5 my first year.
Amongst how many? Like, how
that's
many?
A good question. I would imagine there were like 10, 15 girls in the competition, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. It was great. It was a really exciting experience. And this year
what a
in
good
particular,
lift though after volleyball too. You're like,
I was like,
I've won on adventure, and
I'm going back
this
to
is
Glacier, like really excited. Yeah. The girl that I was a roommate with during the competition was also a Glacier High School girl, and she was also in the top 5. So we both got to go back to school with some very exciting news. And I remember the school paper put it in. It was a big deal.
It is a big deal. Yes.
It was very fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, but this year in particular was really exciting. It was like the perfect year. I'm definitely somebody who believes in the things that are meant for you are going to fall into your lap essentially. Yes. And so this was like the perfect year for me to decide to join the pageant. We had a former Miss USA as one of our judges, and we had a production team from Texas who ran a big pageant website at the time up doing video. And I really connected with all of those people, and to have a former Miss USA, somebody who placed top 10, top 15 at Miss Universe, teaching you how to do pageant walking in your first pageant.
It's cool.
It was really cool. And I think there was a recipe for me to be hooked, and it was a fun environment to be in. And it was the first time that people were asking me just about my opinion on something, not to solve a problem or to give a speech or to read scripture or whatever. It was the first time that people were asking me something about myself that I got to talk about. And I loved it. I loved being in top 5. They ask you an onstage question.
Yeah. What was yours?
They asked me, I think it was like something about my favorite memory. And I grew up here, obviously, but I was a scuba diver. I got certified when I was 10. And so I told a story about being in Hawaii and diving with scuba diving with sea turtles for the first time. And to hear the audience like be excited and react to what I was saying, I was totally hooked. Nice. I loved it. So
I love that. Yeah. That's so cool.
So that's the pageant origin story. Yeah.
Okay. So then you got your title.
Mm-hmm. So I came back the next year. I got a coach. I upgraded my pageant wardrobe. I got some new heels. I practiced walking a little bit more.
Over an inch? Was it over an inch?
Yes, they were a solid 5 inches. I really grew a lot. Yes. Yeah. I had a very intense summer of going to pageant training camps. There was a local agency called Rocky Mountain Entertainment Agency. They're still around. They've stepped away from doing pageant training, but yeah, we had a bunch of summer camps that summer, and I just really honed in on my walking skills and my interview skills and figured out what it takes to be successful in the pageant competition world. And was lucky enough to come back the next year and become Miss Montana Teen USA 2014.
Okay, I don't know. There's so many questions I could ask, but this is the one. This is so stupid of a question. But when you hone in on your walking skills, okay, you
don't still do it with the book like the ones I used to see all the time.
Okay, no. Is there they're judging you on how your hips and everything, the fluidity of it, or okay.
It's more of there is a visual component to it, and the more that you get into it and the more that you watch it, you can start to see there's a way that we will use our abdominals to enhance the way that your body will have more of a curvature on stage. And there's some more technical elements of it. But at the time, it was really mostly just figuring out how to feel comfortable walking and how to look confident and poised while doing it. It wasn't necessarily as much about, a certain pacing of your steps or something. So there is a little bit of that, but it's mostly just turning a presentable walk that looks good to somebody watching you into something that's muscle memory.
Wow. So that's a lot of mind-body connection type work.
Yeah.
That's so more in tune with almost probably a lot of your body positioning and how you're holding your shoulders and how you're breathing.
Yeah.
I would think breath work's big, right?
The breath work's big for sure.
Okay. Interesting.
And we talk a lot about it, breath work and being able to handle the fact that you're wearing high heels, you're on stage in like under hot lights and in a high pressure situation where your anxiety is naturally going to be like raising.
Yeah, your heart's racing.
Your heart's racing.
Yeah.
You're pumping through adrenaline. There's a big risk of people passing out if you
I
lock
was thinking
your knees.
that the vagus response.
Yeah, totally. So we talk a lot about like how to regulate and have enough awareness of your body that you're noticing that you're like you've locked your knees out or you're doing something that is going to increase your risk of something happening negative during the competition.
Okay, I'm just going to say on a side note, you pretty much tapped into the autonomic nervous system regulation piece, which a lot of people are just wrapping their heads around.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, it's basically like,
please tell us more.
I'm sorry. It's basically like you said, that when you get nervous, a lot of people have a propensity to like their knees to lock up or to buckle out. And it has a lot to do with your diaphragm and breathing and whether or not you're just calm and your nerves are high. So anymore, I'm not going to dive deep into it, but we're dealing with a lot of anxiety and just stress these days, mental health crises type issues. And the autonomic nervous system is really what's the core of all of it. It's regulating that. And you were taught in your teens how to connect to that, especially when we're not going to be exempt from stressful situations.
Right.
And at some point in our lives, we're going to be put
in the hot seat.
In the hot seat. So that's amazing that you were given some of those tools through the process. What were some of the things that you learned about yourself?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think the really cool part of participating in a pageant is that for me and my experience, and I think I've talked to my current teen, her name's Ava Williams, she lives out in Billings, about this too, but you go through this it's a cheat code for like adding a quick 5 years of maturity into your life because you're going through all of these experiences, you're under so much pressure, you're both always aware of it. People are constantly reminding you that everyone is watching you. Everyone at nationals, all of the judges, everyone is keeping an eye on what you're doing. And there's just a lot of pressure in this 1 year of your life, or however many months your title holder experience ends up being, depending on how your schedule happens. But yeah, it's a great way to just really you learn a ton. And so I think some of the best things that I've learned are definitely how to handle high stress situations. I think a lot of it is how to handle disappointment. The national competition experience is very intense. I remember being a teen and really not having any concept of the years of preparation that teenagers were having going into the national competition. Montana's certainly not a big pageant state, but there's, areas in the South where these girls have been competing since they were toddlers and they're really prepared to go to a nationals. For some of them, it's their 5th, 6th national competition that they've gone to leading up to Miss Teen USA. And I just had no idea of the different levels of sort of privilege that were in this pageant world. I had the assumption that everyone was going to be in the same place. So that was a huge lesson in itself.
And I think that you actually had an advantage because you didn't know where your stopping point was and everybody's, this is this. And you're like, anything can happen because it can.
Yes. I think I have that advantage now, but as a teenager, it just totally shook me that all of these girls were like immensely more prepared than me. And they had way more resources than I did as a title holder in Montana. And I think my national experience as a teen at the time really felt very negative to me. I think it felt like all I could see was my perceived inadequacies in this environment. And I think now, having learned a lot through that year and then taken 10 years to live a different sort of lifestyle and then coming back, it has turned into a huge advantage of recognizing that's still true. All of those people have still been competing their whole lives, and I have only done 2 big major competitions. And anything could happen. My background is unique. What I'm bringing to the table is different than what everybody else is. And it doesn't matter to me. It mattered so much less to me what the outcome was this year. It mattered so much less to me how well prepared I was compared to other people. I was there proving to myself that I could do this again, that I could be, in my own opinion, worthy of being on that stage. And yeah, it was great to be able to shift that mindset and find a way for me to see that all as positive. But as a teen, like, I totally couldn't see it. Yeah.
I can see that. Plus, at the development stage that you were in, what were you at 16?
I turned 18 right
18.
before I went to Miss Teen USA, like a few weeks before.
So you were a senior.
I got my title in October of my senior year. So like right into the beginning of the school year.
Wow. So pretty much your life pretty much changed overnight.
Absolutely.
Everyone knew that you were going for that title at your school.
At my school,
right?
yep.
So when you walked down the hallway, it had to have shifted from your junior year to your senior year.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how did you manage a senior year where they're starting to check out? They're all, I'm going to college next year. I'm going to start the workforce. You're literally, I'm in competition mode.
Yeah.
And how did you do that whole senior year plus balance the competition piece?
I was gone for a lot of things. I missed a ton of stuff.
How do you feel about that?
That's a great question. I think you're right. Like, senior year itself is a transition period for people. And so I think at the time I felt like, oh my God, I'm like the only one who's going through this like which is true. I was the only one that was going through this particular super intense process, but everyone was getting ready for something big in their own right. And so I think regardless of what would have been happening had I not won that year, it probably would have been a stressful year where relationships are changing and things are more strained than they maybe used to be, or everything just feels tenuous. In a way, it was a pretty welcome distraction from the other stuff that was going on. I think it changed a lot of my relationships. I think being somebody who was in DECA and BPA and like in mostly, if not all, AP classes by the end of my senior year, it wasn't something that, that those two things, at least societally, didn't really mesh. I know now as a pageant woman that all of us are like really high achievers who have very impressive educational backgrounds, very impressive career backgrounds, lots of stuff going on, are very dynamic women. But at the time, that's not really what you think of when you think of pageant people. And so my friends who I was in class with or had really close friendships or relationships with, it just changed quite a bit of, she's doing this thing and she's like all caring about her appearance now. And I don't know, it all felt intense. But I actually ended up missing my high school graduation. The Miss USA competition, I was very close with my Miss Montana. Her name is Katie Latimer. She's now Katie Booth. She still lives here. She's an esthetician. She's one of my sponsors this year. And we're still very close, clearly. But she had her national competition in Baton Rouge, Louisiana during the week of my high school graduation. And all of the other teen contestants were going, or like a good bunch of them at least. And I made the tough decision to skip graduation and miss that part. And I think that just goes to show I was feeling like fairly disconnected from my class at that point anyway. But there were a lot of choices that I made thinking about the future that I could have in the pageant world. At the time, I was still thinking there's a really good chance I'm going to be Miss Teen USA. And you have to think that if you're going into a national competition.
The decisions you make have definitely shown your drive for what you want to achieve.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So it was I think I missed a lot of the high school kind of senior stuff. People are watching everything that you do. You have to be really careful not to get in trouble or do anything. Not that I would ever recommend to anyone, but those kind of typical social,
especially all the ones in the movies that are highlighted and that stuff.
I couldn't participate in any of that stuff, even if I didn't get to have any of those experiences. So in a way, I think there's like a part of me that's maybe nostalgic for what I could have had in that realm. But I think realistically, I'm still quite clear on the fact that going to this competition, going through this experience was so much better and so much more influential for me in my life in the future that I wanted to have and the vision that I had for myself. That it
opens
high school graduation,
I mean, it opens
Who
up.
cares?
I'm standing outside or inside in a hot, sweaty place for 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's
And, yeah,
amazing.
and I still they live streamed our graduation. So like I got to watch my friends give their speeches while I was at Miss USA. It was like fine. It was totally fine.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah,
I
it was
think
great.
it's so amazing. And my thinking too, the whole year that you went through this process, were there something that stood out to you, some iconic moment that you can talk about? Outside of, here's your title.
Yeah, the big one.
Yeah, the big one.
I think it's funny. I was at the pageant world has really changed a lot. There's a lot more social media expectations in the 10 years that I was 2014 and 2024. And so like how much you would have to be posting, how much you're going to be doing in the community, how many events that you go to are all, that expectation has really changed. And it changes a lot from being a teen to an adult, a Miss contestant as well. But I've had the really, really great honor of getting to go back to 2 of the events that I did as a teen and now again as a Miss. So I got to do Felicity's Princess Ball, which is
that's a
a
good one.
really
That's
beautiful, really lovely event.
It's a legend in
It
Kalispell.
is a legend in
It's been going for
Kalispell.
a long time.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I've got to be the guest of honor princess a couple times
that's
now. And and I got to do the Cowboy Up Samaritan House auction, which is also a pretty iconic event in Kalispell. They've been running for 17 years. And yeah, so I got to do that both years. And yeah, I think, I don't know, going to Miss USA and getting to hang out with the teen contestants while we were there. We had a visit to a children's hospital in Louisiana, and we got to it was just great. Just make memories with each other and get to know each other outside of competing together, and then to go and see them again at nationals and get to
That's
build those
wonderful.
connections more.
So you started Miss Montana when you went to college, or what?
Yeah,
that
so
after
I was in way after college. I finished my year as Miss Montana teen when I should have been going to college my freshman year, when all of my classmates were going to college. And I ended up deciding to take a gap year. I would have essentially had to come back from my Miss Teen USA, which was like early August, and then I would have had a week to go and move into a dorm and start college. And I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in state, and I still had to pass my title on to the next girl, and it was just logistically complicated.
A little tight and crazy.
And it had already been like the most intense year of my life.
Right.
So yeah, I decided to take a gap year and work in the Valley, have a couple jobs here. And then I ended up going to school in Virginia at James Madison University, which I loved. I joined my sorority there. I'm a Gamma Phi Beta.
I'm an Alpha Gamma Delta.
Yay! Also a Syracuse founded organization. Yes, we're one of the 3 Syracuse organizations. I'm a big sorority nerd.
I love it.
sorry.
I love it. I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, you went there.
Yeah, and
for
then
a year?
For a year.
Okay.
And I ended up having to transfer. They raised tuition, and it dropped out of my budget. It was already out of my budget, to be fair, but it got worse.
So excited.
Yeah, so I was pretty devastated. I keep going through these experiences where I'm like, everything feels great, and I've added this thing that feels like it's part of my identity now, and then something
life
disappointing happens, and
Jumps
life
up
does
in
life.
front of you and says, "Ha ha."
Yeah, exactly. Luckily, it's a skill that I've been honing for a long time
What
now.
I think it tells me about you, Madyson, is that you are being challenged to be adaptable, and you are a highly adaptable person. And I think that's an insanely beautiful trait to possess. So take it as a positive.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thank
I'm
you.
trying to
I
twist
agree.
it.
No, I completely agree. It's one of my favorite things
Yes.
about me is my
Yes.
ability
Oh, I
to
love
adapt
that.
and
Good.
see
Yes.
things that might really derail somebody as an opportunity for me to, or a new calling, or just a pivot.
Don't give up.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Look at where you want to go, and
And
you can
pivot.
still find a way to get there.
As Becky Rigg said, the perfect pivot.
right.
Yes, I love it.
pivot. Yeah.
So you then went to college here in state. No, you didn't.
Still
James,
no.
Virginia.
Yeah, so I did Virginia.
Virginia?
And then, so I wanted, my big thing at this time was my sorority.
Okay.
And so I hopped on our little sorority website, and I looked to see if we had chapters locally. I knew we didn't have them in Montana.
Okay.
And so I found there was, this is like really not very relevant information, but there was University of Washington State, University of Idaho, or Eastern Washington University.
Okay.
And I grew up going to as many University of Montana football games and other athletic events as possible, including basketball, Big shout out to the Lady Grizz always, but
I love that.
Yes. And so I've always been a Big Sky Conference fan. I had an uncle who coached in the conference in football. And so I knew of Eastern and I was like, I think that's where I'm supposed to go. So I ended up transferring to Eastern and rejoining Gamma Phi Beta's chapter there.
Eastern is where?
Washington.
Yeah, it's
Eastern.
in Cheney, Washington.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Not to be pronounced Cheney, although it's tempting because that's how it seems like it's spelled. But it's Cheney.
Okay.
It's 10 miles outside of Spokane.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But you're not
a
too far
farming
from home.
No,
You're not that far away
it was
from
great.
your home.
It was like a 4-hour drive.
Perfect.
Over
Your
the
parents
mountains.
loved that.
Yes, everybody loved it. It was nice to be closer to home for sure.
And so you were in a sorority
finished out there.
You finished out there. And then what did you major in?
Communication with a PR background. Yeah.
With a PR background.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so you graduated from there. Did you come back to No?
No. Again, the sorority was my big thing in college. So while I was at Eastern, I was on Panhellenic Council twice. I was the VP of recruitment and then president the next year. And then all with kind of the goal of becoming a consultant for Gamma Phi Beta, my sorority. Most of the sororities, I think pretty much everyone at this point, have a recent graduate consulting program where they will hire women who are leaders on their campuses, have the experience that they're looking for to travel to the chapters and do operational auditing on existing chapters, but also to open new chapters for the sorority. Some of us are on growth projects and some of us are on like maintenance projects. And so I had gotten exposure to the program as a freshman at James Madyson because that chapter was one of the new growth chapters. And so we had a consultant living with us during my first year there. And so I knew from then that I wanted to have that job when I graduated. I like to find a goal and like work fairly dedicatedly. So
you must have loved Rush.
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
I was the opposite. I loathed Rush.
Yes.
I'm like,
all I'm thinking of is the band, so I don't even know that.
Madyson, explain what Rush is.
So Rush, or we've transitioned to calling it just recruitment now.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a lifelong commitment, and Rush makes it seem like it's quick, which it is. It still is quick. So that's a branding issue for the Panhellenic Conference. But
totally.
It's the process where potential new members, generally freshmen in college, but that's not always the case. You can join at any time. We'll go through this very organized process of meeting each of the Panhellenic sororities on your campus. So at James Madyson, there were like 12 chapters that I went to, whereas at Eastern, there were 4. So big change there. Mm-hmm. But you have a set amount of time that you're visiting with each of the chapters, and it's a mutual selection process. So I'm going through the process and I get to kind of rank order my choices for the chapters that I'd like to join. And the chapters are rank ordering the PNMs in terms of who's going to be a good fit and who meets our values, who meets our grade requirements. It's a very social time. They're very long days. Everyone ends up sick by the end of the process.
Totally. We're all sick.
It's
congested.
pure germs.
You
can barely hear each other.
Yes.
Everyone's like lost their voice. Yes. It's a fun time. It's a great opportunity. It's like really the only time that you spend that much time with your sisters if you're on that side of recruitment.
Yes.
And so you can really form some great relationships, and the chapters end up really pretty strong after recruitment usually.
So was your position then to oversee that within the sorority? Or are you helping facilitate the dialogue and all the things that goes on during recruitment?
Both. So my first position was at James Madyson, and I was on the sorority organizing team. I was like assistant vice president to the recruitment chair, or we call them the membership vice president. So I was assistant membership vice president, and it was our job to plan out like what outfits we're going to be wearing, what activity we'll do, to plan our training for the conversations that the women will be having with the PNMs, to go over like our different policies and other things that you need to know. But then when I got to Eastern, I tried to run for, I did run, I didn't try to. I ran for being membership vice president in that chapter and was not selected. I went to one of my really good friends, Kenzie, and I ended up deciding, okay, you don't want me to be membership vice president, let's pivot again. And I ended up on the Panhellenic team. So in that role, I oversaw the recruitment of our PNMs. So talking to women on campus about signing up for recruitment. And then I would oversee the schedule from the campus level. I'd book all of the rooms that we needed, have food ready for the P&Ms, order like t-shirts and all of that stuff. So I was overseeing more of like all 4 of the chapters of Eastern's recruitment process, and making sure everybody's playing by the rules and doing all that stuff.
So did you continue with that position when you graduated?
No, I'm a volunteer still.
Oh, you still do that?
I volunteer as the recruitment advisor for my chapter at Eastern still.
Okay, I don't know if things have changed much, but and we're going to get into it because I want to dive deeper into the real sensitive topics.
Yeah,
and we're going to disclaim the fact that some precautionary measures when you start listening to what we're going to be talking about. I think it's important as a person that was a former sorority member and your experiences with other women, the pressures that we face in sororities. I know there was a lot of eating disorders. A lot of my fellow sisters had eating disorders, issues with mental health, a lot of dealing with dysmorphia. And dysmorphia is basically where you have kind of I don't want to say warped sense of self, of your body image. A lot of the struggles. Did you experience that? I know you probably maybe from a certain standpoint saw that in the competitive pageantry world. Let's talk about that because I think it's really important and a lot of people struggle with it.
Yeah. Definitely.
So what's your experience with that?
Yeah. First of all, I just, again, definitely want to disclaim that I'm not a professional. I don't have any sort of professional reason to be talking about this, but I have witnessed a lot of these behaviors and of my sisters, my friends struggling with it. I think even before I was in competition on the volleyball team, I remember there being a lot of conversations like on uniform day, when you get your uniform and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go play on a court in these like really tight clothes, really short shorts. And those conversations about our bodies started really young for us. But it's certainly been a through line for my experience. I don't remember any of it at state competition, any talk of people or their struggles with this in that arena, but I remember going to nationals and the nationals experience, you spend like a week at least a week, sometimes more, in rehearsals and doing sort of promo stuff around the resort that you're staying at or in the community that you're in. And so you spend a long time with the girls that you're competing with. And towards the end, when you're getting close to those final days or the day before competition or the day of competition, you start to, I just started overhearing lots of conversations about the ways that people were regulating their body in harmful or dangerous ways. I really think that it's important not to share what exactly people are doing in that situation, but there were certainly a lot of unhealthy and unsafe behaviors going on. And I think that was the first time that I was really witness to people talking about actively having some of these disorders, like actively experiencing anorexia or bulimia or some other purging disorder. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I knew that those things were real. I had heard about them so many times, but I had never really heard people openly talking about it or witnessed it myself. I think a lot of those experiences are private for most people, and it is something that a lot of people will hide, and it's something that you're not proud of. You don't want people knowing about you.
That's what surprises me too, that they were openly talking about it as either am I talking about it because I want you to accept that, or you do it too, and I'm not the only one, or
you're just spending a lot of time with them too. So like we're in shared bathrooms a lot. You're always at mealtime together, and so maybe people aren't necessarily like outright sharing about it, but if you're paying attention, you could notice it. Or I'm a girl with tummy issues, and when I'm stressed, I experience a little cute to be sharing on a podcast, but
we talk about all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. I experience like constipation sometimes, and so by the end of the week, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm uncomfortable. I'm not saying that I need any sort of medication because of the way that I look, but I like am uncomfortable, and like the amount of people who could reach into their bag next to them and be like, oh, here's laxative, here's a whatever. Like those sorts of things. I think I'm somebody who am fortunate enough to not experience body image issues myself, and I might have disordered eating tendencies when I'm in a stressful situation. My appetite seems to be suppressed during that. But I'm fortunate enough to not personally experience that. But because I experience appetite suppression during stress, I've always been like really aware of keeping an eye on those behaviors in myself to make sure that it doesn't become an issue or something that I need to be worried about. And so like when I would see other people displaying those tendencies, it like just raised a lot of flags for me about how stressful this environment was.
Yes.
And so when I left the pageant world, I was like, oh my God, I'm so relieved.
Yeah.
Like, yay, I'm not around that anymore. Yeah. And then I get into my sorority, and the first year that I'm living at Eastern, I lived in the house with all of these women. And I start to see these behaviors. I start to see girls talking about, oh, I can't have that. I already worked out today, or I didn't work out today, so I can't eat that, or really
behaviors.
restrictive, or like really obsessive about working out. I think that was the thing that was emerging while I was in college, was like, I think the official term for it is orthorexia, but being really obsessive about that. And it comes across as a healthy thing. And it's something that is really promoted in our society. Like everyone's selling you a workout app. Everyone has some supplement or something that you should be trying. And yeah, again, in the sorority world, I saw more and more of these behaviors and realized even when we're not in a full on competition world, these things are happening to women every single day.
And they're putting perfection, like parameters on themselves to say competition or not. I'm going to college and I have to look like this or whatever.
And you're thinking about it and you're like, oh my gosh, obviously like the media has a big influence on this, and the way that ads are run and the way that like people are portrayed in the media. But then I'm thinking to myself, I've gone to one of these competitions where I'm parading around in this sort of ideal body shape. Am I part of the am I making things worse for people? And that was something that like, I think I passed my title in 2014. I didn't compete again until 2024. I was really hesitant about that relationship. And it took a lot of work for me to realize that, that I can go through this competition and I'm happy to do it. And I'm happy to have this opportunity again. And I also wanted to be able to recognize that my choice to do this does have an impact on the people around me. Wow. And that was really underscored. Like the first day that I got back from winning my title this year, I was back at a community event. I was at like a chamber meeting or something, and people that I know and love, women that I know and love, were coming up to me and talking about how they would look at the Miss Montana USA Instagram page that has all of the previous title holders and their experience from the year, and started to feel really bad about themselves after looking at it. And so, I think that's still something that I really wrestle with in my relationship with, witnessing all of this, being really aware of it, being cautious about it for myself and for the people around me, and also recognizing like the competition world that I enter might be part of the problem realistically. Yeah.
And I love what you said before, and we titled this podcast "Perfect Isn't Real." I think that's so powerful because number one, I have to tell this quote because I think it's so interesting. Perfect isn't real. And we're going to be discussing that. The oldest definition of perfection comes from Aristotle. He distinguishes three meanings of the term, or rather three shades of one meaning, but in any case, three different concepts. So what is perfect? Perfect is which is complete, which contains all requisite parts, which is so good that nothing of the kind could be better. And the last one is which has attained its perfect purpose. It is absolutely evolved so tremendously away from that. No one can be perfect. That's basically what he's saying. It's unattainable. And it absolutely kills a person's confidence. It kills their ability to feel empowered or empower others. And I just think it's so great for you to have a platform to talk about that, because I don't think it's talked about enough, because everyone, if you look at social media, is striving for some unattainable, perfect, I don't know,
ideal
goal. Right?
The thing with that, though, that gets me is that everybody looks the same.
Yeah.
Like if you're all perfect, I can't really tell the difference between who you guys are with your makeup and all your layers and how you can do these things. But I'm like, that's not perfect to me. There's no individuality there.
Right, right.
Any sense of self? No, I just want to look like that person.
Yeah,
That's kind of
it is.
weird.
Yeah, I think in this year, I've taken as many opportunities as I can to be aware of that and try and find my way. Like, you're going to Miss USA, you can't not wear makeup and you can't not do the things you're supposed to do. But I made a conscious decision this year to as much as possible wear my natural curl texture and to make choices about certain things. And even now, like, I'm looking back at my pictures from Miss USA and thinking, my God, did I really need to have that dark of a spray tan? What was that about? You can see me in this. You can see me right now. Look at how white this girl is. I look like a whole different person at Miss USA, and it's funny to think about the things that you do to fit in a certain space. And I think the need to belong is a core need for humans,
right?
And it's really difficult to try and subvert any of that, especially when you're being literally judged.
Yes,
but it's hard. Period. It's hard every day. It's something that I think everyone struggles with. It's something that I certainly still struggle with. And I don't know. And
I think too, I don't know. I just think there's got to be so much pressure to where you want to fix it, but you're, like you said, there's a piece this is what it entails, right?
Yeah.
And then, but there's got to be a sense, maybe I'm over speaking.
No,
here.
please.
You can totally correct me, but a sense of, okay, I did this. I'm excited to move beyond it. So I can just release and be me. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
No, there's certainly a big freedom in being a Miss Montana after Miss USA. Like,
Gotcha.
I don't have the competition looming over me. This is my time, really, in my opinion, to, I don't know, get back to more of who I am and less about getting ready for this competition. And so for me, I've taken a lot more time to myself. I've really scaled back my schedule. I like to have a busy schedule. I'm involved in too many things realistically, but I do think it's been a time for me to reflect on who I am and the way that I want to show up. And I think my wardrobe's maybe changed. How much I'm posting on social media certainly has changed. Sorry to my director, Lisa, out there. I do think it will be nice to move past this, and it'll always be an experience that I cherish. And I think I'm really proud of the way that I've handled this year. And I think that there's a lot of growth that I've experienced. And I think I've achieved pretty much everything that I wanted to. And also it'll be really fun to not have some of these pressures.
And we're proud of you to be you and representing our state. It's pretty amazing, don't you think, Kate? You can just tell your heart.
I like you that you're a homegrown.
I know, I love it.
You're down to earth. You know,
and you just at the depths of your soul, you can just tell you lead with your heart. You have soul. You're a kind person. I just pray and hope that you don't take all the responsibility on you. You have done us proud. You know what I'm saying? So just gonna. Good job. I wish you had that with a clap track.
Thank you.
So let's transition, and I appreciate everything you just said. Let's transition into where you're at now and working with Glacier Institute.
Yeah.
Tell us the story on how you became working for Glacier Institute.
Yeah. Good. It's a great story. So while I was at Logan Health, I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, I was able to, through kind of the recommendation and gentle nudging of our foundation director at the time, Tag and Vine, who is, again, a pretty legendary figure in this community.
Okay.
He ran the foundation at Logan Health for 16 years or something. And anyway, great guy and one of my still very good mentors. But I joined the Leadership Flathead program through the Kalispell Chamber, and it's a great program. The first year you go through, you're in class. It's a monthly class, full day, once a month, and you learn about different industries in the valley and get all these connections and yada. And then your second year, you are planning those session days for the incoming class, or you get to serve as a class officer and you get to guide the new class through their program and help them build relationships with each other and just help the program stay organized and be the through line of the class. And so I got to be a class officer in my second year, and one of the new incoming class people was Anthony Nelson, the executive director of the Glacier Institute. And he was somebody who immediately when I met him I was impressed with his leadership style. I liked the way that he engaged in the class dynamic. He had lots of interesting thoughts. He seemed like a really cool person. I really liked everything that was going on at the Glacier Institute. When I moved back to the Valley eventually, after working for the sorority, I had made a list of different organizations that I wanted to work with here, or potential organizations that I wanted to work with. And Glacier Institute, for whatever reason, they really weren't that they were still doing everything great that they've always been doing, but they weren't very public about the work that they were doing. So I don't think that most people would have put Glacier Institute on their list, but I had a great experience at Big Creek as a kid. And so I knew about them. And so they were at the top, they were near the top of my list anyway. So I was like, oh my gosh, great to meet him. Excited that the Institute is in such great and enthusiastic hands. And I'm excited for all the things that they're doing. And during my class officer year, I was working on a political campaign, which ended in November, obviously. And we had a session day in December, 2-3 weeks after the campaign was over. And everybody knew that was my job and that I was going to be looking for something else. And we were at our after hours social event after the session day. And I'm sitting with my friend Jacqueline from First Interstate. And she was like, oh, Maddie, what are you going to be doing? Are you finding anything? And I was like, no, I don't know. If you see anyone looking for a marketing person, just if you would put my name in the hat. And across the table from me, Anthony was sitting and talking to another person and having essentially the same conversation. He was like, oh, I know you guys are hiring. Are you finding anybody? And he was like, no, I'm looking for a marketing person. If you know anyone, let me know. And Jacqueline overheard him say that. And she was like, ah. And so at the table at Bias Brewing in Kalispell, we were upstairs and he had his first round of interview with me. He asked me impromptu.
Gotcha.
Well, thankfully I've been practicing my impromptu interview questions for quite some time. But yeah, he asked me, we have a tendency at the Glacier Institute to ask a lot of useful technical questions, but we have a fun interview question as kind of our signature thing. And he asked, if Morgan Freeman walked into this bar right now, you can trust him because he's played God so many times that he must know what's up, and told you that the world was going to end tonight, what would you do with the rest of the day? How would you end that? And so I talked about, I probably wouldn't stress anybody out. I wouldn't call everyone and let them know that the world's going to end. I would probably buy everyone's drink and just try and make the last few hours for people better. I'd call my friends, I'd call my family, and then I'd probably go sit on Flathead Lake and be in my favorite place for the last of the time that I had. I think that's the perfect way to end the world. Yeah. And that must have been a good enough question or answer to his question. He called me the next day and I came in for a real interview. And
that's amazing.
I was our first ever marketing manager at the Glacier Institute.
Good job.
Wow.
And for those who don't know Glacier Institute, can you explain what they do and how they work within Glacier Park?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the Glacier Institute is the official education partner of Glacier National Park and Flathead National Forest. And we are all about strengthening connections to the natural world through outdoor education. That's our mission. And most people in the Valley know us through our youth programming at Big Creek.
Yep.
So a lot of kids like me got to go out there for a field trip for a night or two. And then there's also a really thriving summer camp program that's been going on for a long time. And so maybe kids went out there for summer camp. Yeah. But we also, the original programs that we started was when the National Park Service realized they had more education that they wanted to be delivering to guests. They wanted to be able to offer in-depth educational courses led by experts on a variety of different topics, but they didn't have the capacity or bandwidth or fundraising ability to do that. The way that the park system works, there's the National Park Service, the park itself. So for Glacier, it's Glacier National Park at the top. And then they have a second layer of the partners. So there's 4 cooperative agreements for the partners in every national park. There's somebody who runs the gift shops, somebody who runs fundraising, somebody who runs education, and somebody who runs the volunteers.
Interesting.
For Glacier, the fundraising and gift shops are manned by the Glacier Conservancy. Education's done by the Glacier Institute. And the volunteers are the Glacier Volunteer Associates. Our relationships still to this day, the Park Service will identify educational needs that they can't meet or don't have the capacity or funds to be able to deliver, and they'll ask us to step in and do that. So right now, or even further back in 2020, they were implementing the vehicle reservation system. We had COVID and wanted to figure out managed access through that as well. And so they identified wanting to be able to guide some hikes and be able to have kind of a driving, not really a driving tour because the Red Jammers are the iconic driving tour of the park. But they had some other educational needs that they wanted to meet, and they asked us to step into that role. Anthony was 2 months into his position as executive director and purchased a whole fleet of Ford Transits and 14 passenger vehicles, hired a new staff, stood up staff housing out at Big Creek, which is a big project if you know anything about the North Fork.
Yeah.
And we were able to launch that program, and it's turned into being one of our like biggest programs that we offer at the Institute.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And now this year, the National Park Service has identified wanting to be able to provide educational opportunities for people who have any sort of access limitations to the park, whether that's a physical limitation, people who maybe are like inner city kids that can't get out or don't have exposure to a national park in their backyard. And so we're looking for different ways to partner with either local organizations or nationwide organizations to be able to provide some of that educational resource. So
That's really
I'm
good.
really excited about it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, there's nothing I can share too concretely right now, but there's a couple very well-known local groups that's their whole mission that we're in talks with to start some really exciting stuff. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can people donate?
Absolutely. Please donate.
So they go to the website. Where do they do that at?
Yeah, if you go to glacierinstitute.org, at the top corner, there's a big donate button.
What's your favorite thing about your job? What's the one big thing that keeps you like, I love this job?
Oh, there's so many things.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now we are.
It's exciting. It would be an exciting place to work.
It's a beautiful
awesome.
place to work.
Yeah.
You get to go into the park.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
classes are amazing that they offer. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's all around. It's so good. Every time that I get to go on one of our educational courses, whether I'm like helping out at Big Creek for the day and I get to hang out with the kids and see them experiencing it, or if I get to go on one of our in-depth courses, I'm in awe of the education that our educators can provide. Like they're the coolest, like recent grads. They're so passionate. They're so excited. Like their enthusiasm is so contagious. And the experts that we bring in, I'm very excited. I'm taking Wolves of the North Fork this year with Diane Boyd, who is like a tremendous wolf researcher. She's a rock star, and she's a rock star in the carnivore biology world.
Yes, the wolf
interesting.
specialist.
Yes.
She can find a wolf.
Yeah.
They're hard to find. They're hard
They
to
are
see.
hard to find. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're going to be able to be like, go up and go, hi, wolf.
No. No, certainly not. But I will probably get new.
okay.
I know usually when Diane's teaching, the night before, she'll pull up the radio collar data for the wolves in the park. And so we'll get an idea of like where some of the packs are hanging out, what of their recent activities are. But it's a really nuanced conversation. Wolves are obviously like, as somebody who has family that still is ranching in Eastern Montana,
Controversial
it's a controversial subject.
Yeah.
And I think one of the really cool parts of the Glacier Institute, one of our core values, is providing opportunities for people to practice critical thinking skills and to take in information that maybe is contradictory to what you believed beforehand or just giving you more perspective on the situation. I think Diane is well known for being great at having that nuanced conversation and talking about, there is impact, or there could be impact to livestock, and that's really relevant to people's lifestyles and their livelihood, and also the ecological impacts of having a thriving wolf population is critically important. And the way that reintroducing wolves in Yellowstone impacted their environment so drastically is like so fascinating. And I don't know, I think wolves are like the perfect example of why I love my job at the Glacier Institute, because we can talk about why they were killed off in the national park. So initially trying really hard, the National Park Service has this mission to, I'm not even going to try, but it's called the dual mandate. They have to protect unimpaired the natural environment and provide opportunities for people to recreate now and in the future. And so they have this kind of like crazy realm that they're trying to figure out. And at different times in the history of the National Park Service, they've taken different approaches. And so, back in the day, they were thinking
the Glacier Park has gotten so many more millions upon millions of people.
Yes.
We have a lot
How do
to
we
balance
this?
Interesting.
But back when they were killing off wolves and coyotes and other carnivore species in the park, they were thinking people want to come to the parks to see the cute animals. They want to see the deer, and they want to see the elk, and they want to see the goats, and so we'll take out the predators of those species so that people have a higher chance of seeing them without thinking about how much that was good. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And then talking about like how that was done and like the ways that we were really meticulous in figuring out how to pretty gruesomely get rid of these species. And then thinking about now the rebalance of that and how nuanced the conversation is of welcoming these species back and repairing some of these things. And there's so much going on.
You have got to be just absorbing so much sponge. I would, if I was in your shoes, I would be like, what? Because we traveled all the park systems during a time frame that when my kids were a little bit little, and we learned so much and how you learn. These park systems had to learn. Roosevelt's kicked them off, and then they were hunting and killing, and then it's a constant learning, changing industry. I can't imagine you being in your shoes. You're never bored. You can never be bored. There's always probably new information coming in and new things you're learning about Glacier, and probably some things that none of us really know about, like some insider things. That's pretty exciting.
We have a really close relationship as one of the park partners with the National Park Service, and it is the federal government. So most of the time when they know stuff, they're either telling everyone already or they can't tell us.
Exactly.
But it is really fun. And honestly, none of that is actually really my job at all. Some of it gets put in our marketing materials and is on the website and in our blogs, and that is my purview. But my job is now I'm the director of development. I transitioned from the marketing manager role into the development position a week after I got back from Miss USA, which was really not what I was expecting, but it was great.
That's awesome.
And so, my job now is really to be telling these stories and talking about like why people learning about it is important. But we're in the middle of a big capital campaign for Big Creek right now.
Good.
Called Restoration Big Creek. We've been doing it since 2021, and we have the time that we're recording this podcast, we have 200,000 left.
Oh yeah.
And next week I'm launching a match campaign. We're going to try and raise $75,000 in just about 8 days, which is fun because the curriculum that we use at Big Creek is called the Big 8. And so we're doing the Big 8 for Big Creek, and we'll be able to highlight the curriculum that we use out there and the topics that we share with the kiddos and try and raise some money and try and get that project finished.
A total of how much?
75. We have $200,000 left to raise
to reach your 1.7 million.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Wow.
Got it. Studied up. Appreciate that.
That's awesome.
And so the reason that we set it at 75, we have a few grants that we're hoping to get closer. If everything went to plan, we would secure the few grants that we're looking at and get the 75 and we'd be done. Oh, okay. So grants are a tenuous little process, but if everything goes to plan, we should be able to wrap funding really soon.
Good. So visit glacierinstitute.org and help them out.
Yes, exactly. Yes, donate.
Yeah, and if we have finished the goal by the time this podcast is airing, we have lots of other things you can support.
You still can support.
Yes,
for sure.
We never turn away kids to our youth programming. We've never done it. We have a very generous scholarship program. So even if you're not going to donate, but if you have kiddos that would benefit from the Glacier Institute and coming out to Big Creek, please sign up for one of our scholarships. We are very generous and we won't even really ask you any questions.
Oh, I love that.
We just want kids to be able to experience it. I got to be out with Kyla's school a couple weeks ago. They were our first class of the Big Creek for this season, and just getting to watch like them be kids and not be on devices and not see any of the pressures of the world. It doesn't tie directly into what we've been talking about in like mental health and body image and all of these things, but you can tell like when you're out here and you're not on your phone, you're not having to see all of these messages and having to filter them for yourself or be left with it. You get to see these kids just be kids and not see the pressure of the day. And they're full of joy. They're full of life, and they're remembering the things that they're learning because they're having a great experience there, and they're hearing like, we were out recording video during this, and so we have a bunch of interview clips from the kids talking about like hearing the creek all day and being excited to be with their friends and excited to build shelters, and talking about how if they got lost in the world, they know how to start a fire now, and they know what things can be useful for building a shelter and keeping themselves safe. And
it's amazing.
Good things to know, though.
It is good things to know.
Yeah. My kids loved doing the backpack adventures through Glacier Institute. So we take advantage that it's so close. There's so many offerings. So it's amazing. Well, we Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Madyson.
for
It's
being with us,
wonderful.
Madyson.
We are getting into our last 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Like in general, or
We have a
oh
lot.
my gosh, yeah. I don't know. I hope that I leave like every situation that I've been in a little bit better than I found it. I hope that I leave people better than I find them. I hope that I can be somebody who makes an impact in the community that she lives in, and that takes on forms and continues to evolve throughout my life. I hope that's something that I never lose and a passion that I never get swayed from.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's
I
beautiful.
really don't know what my future holds. I've talked recklessly about wanting to be governor in the past. Yeah, I know. I think that I keep talking about it, so it's probably I'm probably gonna run for it eventually.
Yeah.
And I would love that. It would be such an honor to get
wonderful.
to serve this state. And yeah, so I just want to be somebody that makes an impact and makes a difference. And
And you are. So it's
thank you.
wonderful. I can see everything coming to fruition. So it's wonderful.
Okay, if you could commit a crime without consequences, what would it be and why?
oh no, a crime
We had to do it. We had to do it. We're
I
like,
know.
this is just the perfect question.
It is
to ask.
fun. It's very fun. I feel like there's probably some sort of, if I could shut down a big, risky environmental operation that was like likely to be harmful, I think you'd probably
good answer.
certainly get in trouble for that. But if I could get away with it, I definitely would.
Good. I love that.
I like that.
That is a riot. I love it. I love it. Okay, our last question, and it's our signature question for our podcast, which is essentially supporting women. And so it's called Pass the Mic. If you could pass the mic to the next woman that we would have on our podcast, who would that person be and why?
And it needs to be Montana.
A Montana
based.
woman.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I feel very fortunate to have extremely rich female friendships in my life, and I've always had that. And I think that I'm lucky to keep that evolving and growing. It's really hard to pick one person, but I've been thinking about it a lot. So I think that my person would be Jasmine Morton. She is a lawyer in town. She's the only nonprofit lawyer in the state of Montana.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And
Only one?
only one.
I was going to say, that's a shocker.
Yeah, only one. She also owns the Summers Mansion. She grew up in Summers, and so it's like a really
used to live
cool
out there
legacy
too.
project
Oh,
for
it's
her
huge.
to take on that space and to renovate it and
Yeah.
bring it up to its full glory and get to use it again. They're getting really close to having that whole project finished, and she's a mother. She's just incredible. So that would be who I would pass the
That's
microphone on to.
wonderful.
We're going to contact her.
Yeah, I'll give you
For
her
sure,
contact
for sure.
information.
Thank you so much. Well, this was a wonderful, enlightening chat. We covered a lot of different topics, and I'm just so impressed by you. You are a gift to Montana. You truly are. You are not just, you're a beauty inside and out. That's how I feel. I feel from this interview. I'm like just a beautiful person inside and out. So I just want to tell you that. I'll get all emotional.
You're
Go ahead.
courageous and brave and resilient and keep on
Yes.
fighting for the environment.
I love it. I love it.
Actually, sorry,
Yeah.
I'll share one quick thing about fighting for the
Yeah.
environment. I got asked by Citizens Climate Lobby to go to their big summer lobbying event in DC, and I'm getting to go. So I'll get to be on the lobby team asking Senator Daines to work on some specific initiatives to help the environment. So I'm really, I thought that I would, one of my like potential career plans was to be a lobbyist, and so I'm getting that dream to come true just at least for a day. So we'll see where that takes me, but I'm
Congratulations.
excited
That's
to I'm
wonderful.
excited to fight for the environment in a very notable way.
Good. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Love that.
Thank you so much, Madyson. You have just been a delight, and we are absolutely honored and blessed to have had you here today to
Thank you.
speak on our podcast.
Yeah, thank you for creating this space.
Yes.
It's so wonderful. I'm excited to listen to all of the other interviews that you put together.
Thank you.
I'm sure it'll be great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care, Maddie.
Thank you.
A special thank you to our podcast guest. You can find all of her links in the description of this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. You will be notified of future podcast guests. Follow us on our social media platforms and stay tuned for our next podcast chat with an amazing Montana woman.